The fourth myth about missionaries I want to address is that missions is going to unreached people groups. Many would say that missionaries are supposed to go to unreached groups, learn the language, and translate the Bible into that language. And if someone goes somewhere in the world where there is already a Bible in that language, then there are many who would say that is not really missions. But the reality is missions, according to the Bible, is more broad than just frontier missions. Just like my last video, I think John Piper is very helpful on this. In his book, Let the Nations Be Glad, and elsewhere, Piper highlights not one key emphasis in missions, but two. That's frontier missions and local church-driven missions. It's frontier missions that focus on reaching unreached people groups. These are new works, taking the gospel where it has never been proclaimed, in languages it has never been proclaimed in. And this is what we see Paul doing in many of his missionary journeys. Paul's goal was to go and evangelize every nation. And that is why he writes in Romans 10, "How then will they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how are they to believe in him of whom they have never heard? And how are they to hear without someone preaching? And how are they to preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who preach the good news." But Paul did not only emphasize frontier missions to the unreached, but he also focused on establishing and strengthening local churches. And he appointed elders, even sending Timothy and others to spend much time strengthening local churches. And he did this not only to ensure evangelism was being done, but also to make sure that there were sustainable worshiping communities that fuel ongoing missions. And so missions is both new frontier works to unreached peoples, and at the same time, missions is the strengthening of local churches in communities where the frontier work has already been done. And it's vital to have both works being done in missions. When my family and I moved to Kenya, statistics claimed that about 85% of Kenya is Christian. The United States is only about 60%. So according to the stats, Kenya is most definitely reached. Many would look at that and they would say there's no need to focus missions efforts and money there. But when we moved to our little village in Bungoma County, I visited many churches and communities, talking with hundreds of pastors and people who claimed to be Christian, and yet I could not find a single person who could tell me the gospel. They had all kinds of things to say about the gospel, but none of it was biblical. They all believed a false gospel, but none believed the true biblical gospel, nor could they tell me anything about it. Paul says in Romans 1:16 that the gospel is the power of God for the salvation of those who believe. Now, how can they believe a gospel that they have never heard? And how can they believe a gospel that they do not know? And if they do not know and believe the gospel, then they are not Christian, no matter what the statistics say. The frontier work has already largely been done in Kenya. There's a good Swahili Bible. In fact, there's more than one good Swahili Bible, and there's a good Luya Bible. But the work of strengthening the local churches still needs to be done. Missions is still necessary in Kenya because even though the stats say Kenya is 85% Christian, we all know it really isn't. Mission still needs to be done in Kenya and many other countries that are considered reached because God is still not worshipped.